Welcome to Common Hood. Thank you for joining us for another episode. Another Wacky Friday and another opportunity to share a soulful nugget for you to marinate over the weekend. Today's topic is going to be I beat that monster. That monster be caused by stress can lead us to cocaine, heroin, crack, fentanyl, Paracet, Molly beans, Oxidon, whatever they got at the other day. And at this point, without further ado, I'm gonna be flanked by my man Naud. He's gonna introduce you to the guest of the day, which is Tomy.
All right. A once promising honor roll student with talks of potential football scholarship offers to UF, life was upended by the third semester of his sophomore year of high school. His future was derailed by a long trail of substance abuse and prison time. At 16 years old, Tomy Bird was introduced to cocaine at a party by adults where he was the only teenager. He came home from work to a lascivious party at the condo where he lived after moving out of his parents' house. His life has not been the same ever since. He has been to prison 4 times. Since his first incarceration at 18 years old, he spent a total of 29 years of his life in prison, in the prison system. His life story is a cautionary tale for those who need to hear it, and it serves as an example of redemption, failure, and back to progress. Calvin, please tell us how you met Calvin and how you met Tomy and became a support system for Tomy.
Well, my wife, Lucinda, which Tomy know, him and my wife and his wife was big good friends, and I used to hear about him all the time. And I guess when he came home, he was working at a place called, what was it, Idaho Timber, and I had my handyman company at the time. So he called me up one day and said, "Hey man, I can't do it for this type of money. I can't work out here no more, man." So I said to him, so what we need to do then, I said, you need to come with me. I'm gonna bring you in with me to the handyman thing, and we're gonna work together. And man, we've been riding ever since. How many years, man?
It's been ever since 21.
Yeah, 21. But we've been riding a long time, and we're more like brothers, if anything. And so one day he called me up too and said, "I need an accountability partner," and we became accountability partners for one another. So we call each other up when we have problems. We go to work with each other. We got jobs. We go to jobs with each other. We bust tail together, man. So he's a pillar to society right now, man. His past is his past. I love this guy, man. And
You got a breakthrough story.
Yeah, he definitely do. He definitely do. And we fight like brothers. We argue like brothers. And truth be told, we get in the trenches like brothers. So
that's right.
I admire him for everything that he's become and what he's doing for people out there. And he has a lot on his shoulders, as well as I do. But I thank God for him, man. He's a good man. Very, very good man.
Let me ask you this before we get to it. You had mentioned that Lucinda used to tell you so much about Tom. What she told you?
Okay. My wife would tell me about him because Tomy had $1 million company back in the day.
Okay.
And she was saying he's somewhat like you, probably like business minded, and you probably need to hook up with him when he come home. And I was like, okay, baby, okay. You know that thing saying, okay, baby, when he come home, I'll hook up with him.
Hey, you know what's so curious? The fact that you trusted him when he come home from that situation of being incarcerated.
It's not.
Most people be like,
"Oh
I'm
no,
out to feed you like a."
See,
was it $1 million he was making?
See, the thing with me and him is people fail to realize that if you know about that situation and you've had experience with that situation,
right.
It don't mean nothing. It's an individual person. Right. So I don't look at the situation. I look at the individual person. And he didn't rub me off the wrong way. He was straightforward. Always been straightforward. And when I say straightforward, bro, man, he speak his mind. And you like, man, who you talking to like that? Who you talking to like that? But
both of y'all look similar size, but y'all ever bump?
Well, actually, we never fought. We never fought. We wrestled. Just a little bit.
I got you.
But when
it's testing. Then your knee went out. His back went out.
That's what it was. Hey man, leave it alone.
Yeah.
But it was definitely it's been a ride for us, man. It's been great. Don't get me wrong. We ups and downs and different things of that nature. But man, you couldn't ask for a better person by your side. You know that's gonna ride with you. And like I said, thank God for him, man.
I thank God for him,
Yeah.
man. You know, we're gonna piggyback on something that Naud got into about your prison time. So before we jump into it, let's talk about your environment you was raised up in.
Well, I grew up, I guess what they'll call the northwest side over there off of Growth Avenue, Street.
Where is that located at?
Kings Road, Myrtle Avenue.
I'm in
Kings
Gainesville.
Road, it's where the main post office is right there on Kings Road.
So is that in Gainesville or?
That's Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Duval.
Is it in the heart?
Yeah.
Where they really say
right
Duval.
uptown, right up where uptown is and all that over there.
Yeah.
So I grew up, in the hood, Durkeeville, lodging homes.
They called it
Jefferson
Durkeeville?
Street. Yeah, they called it Durkeeville back then. And then we had the Jefferson Street apartments, which were more or less the lodging homes. And so it wasn't nothing around there but a bunch of violence and drugs and thugs and you name it.
Well, I guess, what is it? When Martin Luther King got assassinated in 1967 and then 68, President Lyndon B. Johnson, 10-year Rehabilitation Act for the housing, HUD, and development. How much of that did you see of development for you to say it was the hood that you grew up in, or the funds didn't reach to your level?
I didn't see any funds
You
from
didn't see
anybody reaching that neighborhood.
All black neighborhood.
All black neighborhood, drug infested neighborhood.
Yeah. I grew up in an all black neighborhood.
Robbing.
It's getting a little sprinkle now though.
Yo, not the sprinkle.
I think everything got a little sprinkle now.
Yeah. What about your old neighborhood?
My own
Still
neighborhood,
all black?
I see one or two.
One or two.
My
It's
brother
a
still
progress.
lives over there now. So, matter of fact, I had to come through there today. You see one or two speckles over
How did
there.
I feel to go through the neighborhood like that?
Well, it lets me know things have changed.
In what way?
Things have changed to where our cultures are now intermingling with one another, and a lot of it has to do with the drug area. A lot of it has to do when you see. Most of the time when I see a Caucasian in an African American neighborhood, especially if it's the hood, most of the time it's related around some type of drug or something like that.
Yeah, typically
you know what I mean?
you don't see.
You don't see.
I guess my neighborhood might have been a little bit better.
Right.
Though we had it, it's like, hey, whoever coming there now, they all working and trying to buy a home.
Right.
But before that intermingle, I will say when you saw a white person, I kind of feel the same way. Like, you already know that
either they was the police,
one or
the other. So that's the way it was.
The neighborhood, when he mentioned the time, let's talk about going to the first bid on how much time you got, what you went in there for, and what was your state of mentality.
Well, due to my substance abuse, I went into thieving, stealing.
Right.
Which of course caused me to get incarcerated.
What was your substance of choice before you get too deep?
Crack cocaine.
Okay.
All right. And so that was the era when crack really hit Duval and Jacksonville. But and so my first bid when I went in, it was such a shock because I was green, if you want to use that word. And I went in and I didn't know guys were standing at the gate picking me for a mate before I ever got in there. So it was a survival mode for me. It wasn't nothing for as rehabilitation. It was.
You hear that, kids?
You go in there.
When you drop your pants down, when you walk around with it down, they let you know. That belong to me, huh?
Right, absolutely. And it's,
I hope they can read between the lines.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's not by choice, you know what I mean?
Right,
it's by force.
Right.
You either do it or you don't. So that my first two bids was that type of environment, just survival mode, fighting.
Got it.
You know what I mean, and trying to survive.
I got to bring an old school movie out. I got to bring it out.
Oh, y'all know what's finished.
Did you see New Jack City?
Everybody
You know how it was before?
Come on, man.
You know how Pookie say crack music?
Crack is something else.
It's something else.
Yes.
But even seeing that's acting.
Right.
So he should have had an Oscar.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But He should have had an Oscar.
Right.
If for those that have experienced that, they say that brother should have had an Oscar for that to be his first time.
Yes, and the makeup artist too.
Don't with all the ash around his head.
Oh, it's calling me, man. It's calling me, man. It's calling me. It's calling me.
Epitome of method acting, right?
Yeah, but when he say it's calling them, I was like, he called a lot of people to the cops.
Yes,
He called a lot of people.
Yes,
So that was your first 5 years. You got in there for the grand theft, for the,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, man. I got you.
I started out snatching purses and then snatching money out of the cash register, and that's what ended me in prison.
Well, I know you had to go uptown to snatch them purses where you know there's some money at.
No, I went crosstown.
Yeah, okay.
I went crosstown. You know, you go uptown snatching some purses, you might not make it out of there. But my dad told me when I was young. He said, "Never take anything that you can't give back."
Yeah.
And so I knew I had a drug addiction, and because I learned that as a kid, I wasn't gonna kill for it.
Right.
And so I learned how to steal, and that was my way of supporting my habit. And ultimately, if you do anything wrong long enough, you're gonna get caught. I don't care how much sense you think you got.
Yeah.
I don't care how smart you think you are. The law is always smarter than you. So that's how I ended up being incarcerated.
The law. And that's your first 5-year bid. Then you came back and say, I got 5 more years for y'all.
I came back more angrier than when I went in. You know, I never knew someone would try to take my manhood against my will, and that I would literally have to fight to survive. And
you ain't want to deal with it when you're like, oh, I got to deal with this. I got to go through this again.
Not only that, the environment that was meant to rehabilitate me was allowing this kind of behavior to go on. You understand what I'm saying? And so, you know, you don't want me to kiss my wife in the visiting part, but you got 2 guys laying up next to one another on the compound, and you ain't saying nothing. So it was the environment. I was bitter at the system. The system was not there to help. It was not there to rehabilitate. It was just there to
That's a good point.
house.
Naud brought up prison reform. I like to hear y'all opinion just off of that statement alone. That you in a house, jailhouse that is, that's supposed to rehabilitate. Just share your opinion, especially with you, Tommy, because I haven't did the bid, so I when I think of prison reform, when I hear that, like I heard you say that, I went into prison and I'm thinking it's to reform me,
Right.
but I'm seeing something totally different that they're allowing to go down.
Right.
And one of them is men against men, taking it against your will.
Right.
And when you see some of the cases that be out now with people saying that, hey, this act of wrong, if it's unwilling, it shouldn't happen. So that protection is not there in prison, but I'm sure there's this not that, but there's a plethora of things you can share.
Absolutely.
That would influence prison reform. You mind sharing some things additional to that?
Well, one of the things is I had to come to learn that even with making my bad choices,
Right.
I had to make a decision to make the right choices, even in the environment that I was in. But one of the things they do is they make it very difficult for you to get to the educational or the chaplaincy or the law library so you can get educated. When they call yard open, 90% of the guys are going to run to the rec field. And there's no officer there to harass you about going to the rec field. But if you want to get to that library, if you want to get to that chapel, or you want to get to that law library to try to learn what happened in your case or whatever, they've got officers there that's going to make you stand on a long line. They're going to search you down. They're going to harass you. If you talk, they're going to do everything to keep you from going that way. And a lot of people don't go. So they can make more educational programs readily available for the guys that are there.
Making it part of the curriculum.
Exactly, making it part of the curriculum.
More of a productive scheduled day.
Exactly. And as far as the substance abuse programs are concerned, you know, if you know an individual has a substance abuse problem, why not give them the opportunity to get the treatment that they need instead of caging them in an environment where the drugs are prevalent still there, there's alcohol still there.
I'm glad you mentioned
You know,
that. I was wondering how
there's
much.
everything going on right there in the environment that you're in. So for someone that doesn't have the willpower, I would say, to make a change, it's almost impossible.
As addictive as crack cocaine is back in the 80s and now, what was the withdrawal symptoms that you faced while being incarcerated? Like the initial process, was there any withdrawals you had to deal with?
Crack cocaine was not necessarily a physical substance. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like heroin or something like that. You know, the craving for more, you had to deal with that. But once you had a one night's sleep and woke up the next morning and realized where you were,
Okay.
you know what I mean? You didn't think about, you thought about
Your
how I was
sleeping
going to deal with
pills,
this crime I just got locked up for. And so, you know, crack was not even on your mind at that time. But so there was no physical withdrawals like heroin or anything like that. you know.
Okay.
I want to go back to when we was talking about when they keep you in line and won't let you to the chapel and won't let you to the law library. I remember when they came out with the private institutions. Remember that when they came out with the private institutions, the private institutions were built for that. They were built to rehabilitate.
Right.
But then they turned them into the regular institution.
That's right.
They didn't keep them around long enough. You know, so they turned them into a regular institution to where the people could not get any kind of learning, any kind of teaching. And he said something so keen. He said that you have to want to be rehabilitated when you're in there. You have to want to be able to study. You have to want to be able to go and get some education while you're in there. And I admire that too as well, you know.
But you know, I'm looking at when you said 90% run to the
radio
yard, and the small 10%, it's like, well, it's like that in a public school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like that in a public school. So
That's a matter of conditioning. You're conditioned, and as a human nature, to draw to what's fun, relief from the pressure of being locked up all day, and that moment of going to the rec is a respite, somewhat of a solace for most people.
Right.
So it takes effort to draw you to the law library, to the chapel. What was the other thing you said you used to help?
You got the law library, the chapel, and then you've got the educational department.
Right.
That's up there as well.
Right.
You know, during my first two bids, I didn't have time to think about that. I was running to the rec field too, so I can get some muscles just to, just to survive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But within my third bid,
Yeah.
you know, I got to the point to where I realized that crack don't see muscles.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You
That's
can come out.
Is this a 13-year bid you're talking about?
Yo,
Is
that's
it
during the
durable?
13-year
Okay.
bid. I realized, man, you know, I thought, well, I can get out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, if I was going to get out and be, you know, no gym instructor or something like that, or what all the muscles were going to do. And crack didn't see the muscles. In a matter of time, they were gone. So I realized I had to get it up here. Because if I didn't get this strong, this here was always going to be defeated.
Right.
It was always
good.
going to be defeated.
good.
You know, because I had been defeated through anger, lust, and all kind of other things where I didn't have the strength up here to realize who I was. You know, and we have to be careful what we say to our children too. You know, because the words form them. If you tell them they're never going to amount to anything, they're going to think they're never going to amount to anything. And then they begin to develop low self-esteem, and it's easy to be influenced by somebody then.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because of the disconnect that I had with my dad and family, I wanted a family. I always wanted to be a part of the family, and that's the reason why we have the spread of the gangs today.
Okay.
Because they want to fit in, and so when you want to fit in, you're easily influenced, even if somebody's doing something that you know you've never seen your parents do before, smoke a joint or whatever. But you want to fit in with this gang. You want to fit in because family is so important. You know, I listened to you guys talk last week about Father's Day. You know, family is so important because if a kid or if a child doesn't have a family environment, they're gonna find one somewhere. They're gonna find one somewhere if it's in the gang, You know what I mean? If it's in the drug dealing or whatever, they're gonna find a family somewhere.
Yep.
Somebody they can
Somebody they can connect to
and listen
and be influenced by.
Right.
And especially as we're talking about children, and at those impressionable stages of your life, you're finding a sense of belonging, something to identify with.
Yes.
That's where, if there's not a strong parent presence, you're liable to take on philosophies and people's rhetorics and isms and easily be influenced.
Yes.
And before you know it, you're heading down roads that you don't even know that you was already on.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it can happen like that.
Yeah.
It can happen like that. It doesn't take but one bad decision.
I heard you earlier when you said you did something, and by the time you came down and realized you in jail, what am I here for?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
how much did the prison system know you were on it
They
to give you the treatment, or they just base it off of you did this crime, we don't care nothing about it, no rehabilitation office? Did they know?
They knew.
They know.
They knew.
I got
They
you.
knew because you're gonna tell them. At least I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why you out here stealing? Cause I'm on drugs, man. You know what I mean? And
Man, this is
so they know.
So this is like, for me, I'm listening like, get your drug test, that's verified. But I think now I see why prisons are private. If they there to make money,
It's about the body count.
it's that body count.
It's the body count, and every individual body makes a certain amount of money for the prison. So it's about the body count. It's one of them things where I look at sometimes. I say, now it says rehabilitation. You know, what's so rehabilitated about it? You know, they set it up. They set prison systems up. I want you guys to look at this for a minute. The military, the school system, and the prison system. They all have the same system. You go into a hallway in a school system, right? Same type of hallways in the prison. Same type of hallways in the barracks in the military. It's the same built. You know. So what I'm saying is, it's a form of training your mind in a certain way. It's a form of training your mind in a certain way to go by this system. And anytime you try to break outside the system, guess what happens? You have to be able to formulate yourself in the system, to be part of the system, to be able to live.
Yeah, prison, living in a underserved neighborhood that have all these activities.
Yeah.
We done touched a few things, kind of a roundabout way when we talking about prison reform.
Yeah.
So in prison reform, obviously, when you say military is going to at least provide structure. In a sense, it provides structure.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now you know what you're there for when the bells get ringing. I don't care when the bells get ringing. You know what you're there for. You hope that time don't come, because I don't believe in that weapons of mass destruction should be bullets. I'm just against all of that. I just believe that we all should be able to have a connection that don't breed the violence anyway. So, but we mentioned in the structure of the day, the setting up the opportunities, to give the people a choice to go through. It should be kind of like if it was in the military and they told you was going to class that day, you going to class whether you go there and sleep. Same way with school.
The same way in the system.
But in the system, as he was saying, that rec is wide open. To go to the law library, you got to go through this, that, and the third. Now, when I was in the military, you had a roll count. I mean, you had to get checked in to make sure you was there and all of that stuff there. So I'm sure that if he's in prison, they did his head count and they made sure he didn't have nothing on him. So, man, what's the problem for me to go to the library to try to figure out my situation or why I'm in here?
Absolutely.
What's the problem? Why am I got to get patted down and vetted? And these are men in here too now. So some people be like, man, hey, I don't want to go through that. I just did all that for you. I got to do it again.
So, as a cautionary tale, but it also transcended into redemption. What was some of the things that I know you said you went to the clerk, the chapel, and became a clerk trainee, and how that has helped serve as redemption for you? Because I understand you said that you learned to respect everybody's religion, and that was an educational awakening for you, religious-wise or spiritual-wise.
Right.
Tell us about how you transcend that into redemption.
Well, starting that third bid,
Yeah.
I realized, like I said before, that I had to get something up here.
Okay.
And so I went in with the mindset that I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could, because I knew from my previous bids that the resources were there. You know what I mean? There was a library there, but at that time I wouldn't focus on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This time, this time I wanted
This
to
is
take
the second
advantage.
bid. This is the second bid.
This is the
Third
third
bid.
The third one.
This is the
Okay.
third bid.
Okay.
This time I wanted to get something up here, so I didn't run to the rec field
Okay.
like I used to. I started getting into theology. That was my first endeavor. That was my first hunger, was to learn why I'm here. Because, you know, if this is what life is all about, I don't want to be here. And then I went on to study, because I was incarcerated for a crime that I didn't commit. It forced me to go to the law library and start studying my case. And so I started studying my case and doing research and got good at it. And then they brought me in as a law clerk trainee. And so I studied some law, and then I worked in medical. I learned a little bit of medical, and I studied business. I read a few books, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You know,
We all read that one.
Everybody got
I
a
can't
taste
never
of
get
both.
Robert Costanoxi's name right.
Robert T. Kiyosaki.
Yeah. So Think Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so I dove into study, and I began to separate myself from all foolishness.
Okay.
You know, and I reestablished my own value on who I am. You know, I didn't get it from necessarily my mom and dad. They done the best they could, and I definitely didn't get it from the streets and the officers were going. So I had to work on myself. You know, and
Self-reflection.
and that's what
Big
I did.
time, big
That's what I did. I spent time doing that.
That's a key sentence that you said, reestablishing your value.
Absolutely.
Can you expand on that a little bit more for people who are going through things and may need to hear and understand what that really means?
Well, oftentimes, whether it be a parent, whether it be a sibling, a mentor, will say things to us to devalue us, to make us think that we're less than. And even today, it's social media. You know, people can Photoshop and do all kinds of stuff to make this, and so allowing people to speak to you and say things to you that's not true. All right, people call me a crackhead, but I never called myself a crackhead, because I knew because I done crack, that didn't make me a crackhead. I was somebody.
That's right.
You know,
Or somebody.
Yeah.
I was somebody, and I knew I was somebody in the crack house, but I just didn't believe. You know, and so this being here and saying, "Listen, I'm tired." You know, and until you get tired, there's nothing nobody else can do.
That's true.
You know,
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I agree
You
with
know, we
that.
often said it before, man. Sometimes when the student is ready for the teacher,
Yes.
the teacher will show up. And in that case, that theology class kind of resonated the spirit. That business reading Napoleon Hill saying, I knew I could do something. I get that guy. I done did it before.
That's right.
Right.
But you know, you mentioned, they always say when they go in prison, everybody study law. And I heard you say that you was in there for something you really didn't do. So where was the injustice at?
Where was the injustice is the fact that I was there because I didn't do the crime.
Right. What was the crime they charged you that you did?
Multiple counts of battery on a law enforcement officer when I never touched an officer.
I know. That, you know, whenever I hear that, man, I be like, I got a gun. I can call the Popo Mo back up in 5 or 10 minutes. I got a, what they call it, the nightstick. The wrong word.
Yeah.
I got the mace.
Got the taser.
And I got the K9. And I'm looking like, when they said battery on an officer, I'm saying, was it officer or officers?
Officers.
It's always more than
Right.
one when you get pulled over most of the time. So
That's right.
that's real. That's very. That's another form of the injustice that we sometimes just people. There's a lot of people in there that says that the cops did over an abundance or whatever the case may be.
Well, you feel like this right here. Oftentimes, if an officer pull you over, they know you're in a drug-infested neighborhood, or they know you're doing drugs. 9 times out of 10, you're not educated. So therefore, I can put whatever crime on you I want to put on you, and then throw you in there. And if you're smart enough, get out. But if not, do the time. And so we have a lot of uneducated African American men and women now that are in prison. And they're not even there for the crimes that they actually done. But they don't have the funds to hire a lawyer. They don't have the education.
Oh man.
Talk about that public.
Public pretender. That's what they call
Public
it.
pretender.
Public pretender. They work for the state, so they ain't there to do nothing but to try to get you to plea out.
Right.
You know, and they're not there to you. The system say you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. That's not true. You are guilty until you can prove yourself innocent. If you can't prove yourself innocent, you're guilty. It doesn't matter whether you've done the crime or not.
So I got a question for you. My question is, because you see the system as it is and how it is, what can we do to help? Not the system that's going to be there, but to help now that we're here in this environment, in this world. You know, we talk a lot. Everybody talk a lot, but they're not doing anything about it. I know one thing that you've done about it. You got a major company called Second Chance. It says company's called Second Chance. I want to throw that out there for a minute. Second Chance means the people that he hired have either been incarcerated or they came out of prison and they needed a job. He have these people on, and he takes these people. He work with these people. He try to bring. I've seen him do it, and then he got me doing it, and we we got all these people working with us. Sometimes they get on our nerve. Sometimes they get on our nerve, but the heart of the matter is you're trying to reach back out and you're trying to help someone make it out of the ditch that you was in. Now, we all know where I come from. I speak about it all the time. You know, my homelessness and stuff like that and different things of that nature. You know where he come from now. So we can say a lot of different things of what caused this and what caused that. Now that we're getting back to the point of like, it's over, it's done with, what can we do now to help?
Well, that sounds to me community outreach.
Yes.
You're reaching back to your community.
Yes.
And it's the opposite of being transactional.
Right.
Your altruism at work. You're reaching back selflessly. You're doing things that you don't normally need to do, but you're doing it. That's laudable. I appreciate that.
And I think what we're doing right now is going to help because it make awareness. See, society don't know half the time. They're ignorant to what's really going on in the system. They only get what the news show them if they watch the news. So making awareness that, hey, our system is broken. And
it keeps going back to the system. It keep going back to the system. So it's like Second Chance, you giving through your company. He gave you a second chance, but the system holds a stigma. Even though you paid that time, you did your punishment, you completed the cycle. And that reminds me of you talking about some of the things you mentioned that what's carried on you even after you get out. That's been a liability for you.
that's right. You know, you come home. If you come home, you got some type of conditional release or some type of probation or whatever situation may be. They've got all of these costs that you've got to pay. You don't have a job.
Okay.
They've got all these classes that you got to attend. If you don't attend them, they're going to send you back to prison, but you don't have transportation. So they're not offering you any type of transportation, any type of assistance, and they have no mercy at all. So if you don't have a support system when you get home, it's just a matter of time before you go back to the system. Recidivism. And so they're setting you up for failure. They're setting you up for failure. They have no type of assistance programs. They ain't gonna give you no vouchers to catch the bus so you can get to the probation officer. They're not gonna do anything. Then they're gonna make it mandatory that you gotta find a job. Well, how am I gonna find a job if I gotta go to all these classes? Well, I can't tell my boss, and that's the reason why I work with a lot of the people that I work with, because I understand they may have to go to probation. I understand they may have a court date. I understand they may have to go to an NA meeting or AA meeting, and I'm not going to fire them because of that. But you can't get a McDonald's job or somewhere else where you don't continue to show up for work because you got all these classes. So the system is set up for you to fail, and I think that they need to provide more assistance, and they need to be more merciful toward people that are coming home who may not be able to find a job. How am I gonna pay my probation every month if I can't find a job? You know what I mean? So there's a lot they can do, or have some job assistance program. That's one of the things.
Put you in the negative as soon as you get out.
Right. I'm trying to get connected with the probation department. So when people get out, they can get a job with Second Chance or Lucent the Handyman, and have an opportunity to have viable employment. Go ahead.
I was getting ready to say this. Remember the car wash I used to have in Jacksonville? Okay, so the work release center. Those guys, they're at the work release center and they need jobs, right? So they'll come. You can go to the work release center. You can sign your company up with the work release center, and those guys will come to work. And when they come to work, you teaching them. Some guys don't even know how to do what we do. Right. You know, when they come, they don't know how to do what we do. So you're teaching them along the way. And then some of them. I see why you work with girls all the time too. And now I do. So some of the guys that we work with are knuckleheads. Some of them, they don't want to listen. Some of them, they don't want to. It's that stigma, like, I don't need to listen to you type thing. But some of them, man, the majority of them, they really want to change. They really want an open door. And he mentioned, Tommy mentioned something about you can't find a job. It's true. McDonald's, if you got an F on your back, a felony on your back, they run that background check on you, and you try to get a job at McDonald's, man, they will not give you a job at McDonald's because you're F on your back.
It used
It's
to be
potential,
a time
like,
McDonald's.
But now it's like that now. It's changing.
Yeah, it's changing.
And so
it's potential liability to them.
So you have to have someone, like he said, some people out here have to be able to know, okay, I'm going to give this person a chance to bring him in, to give him a job. You got companies out here that hire now. They have something set up now to where if they hire felons now, they get a write-off on their taxes. They get an incentive now.
Work opportunity.
And they get an incentive now. So every felon that they hire, they get money back at the end of the year. So now they're starting to do that. Now they're starting to hire felons because of that situation.
Right.
But before, it's a positive. Before, no.
So, being that you guys are in the trenches, hands-on, working with people who needs the help, what could be done more to help more people? If you could talk directly to the politicians out there who are in charge or who have the potential to make those changes, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that they should make more funds available, more grants available for halfway housing, reentry programs, substance abuse programs that will help people transition. One of the visions I have is for a ranch called Recon Soldiers for Christ Ministries, and it's on 300 acres of land, and it will educate, rehabilitate, medical and mental health treatment, as well as every vocational trade will be there. For recreational programs, it will be swimming, camping, horseback riding, for the whole purpose of teaching someone that's on drugs and that's all they knew, that there's something else to life, but they have to be in an environment that's structured, because you can't go out and tell a prostitute or a drug addict, or even somebody coming home from prison, go get a job or go do this if they don't have an education, or they don't have parents, or whatever situation may be, or no type of support system. So we like to tell people that they need to change, but what are we doing to provide the necessary resources that they need to change?
And I want to say something when I'm piggybacking real quick off what Tommy said about the educational. I believe the educational factor is, I believe that it should be more trade education, training them how to do plumbing, like your son is doing, training them how to do masonry work, training them how to be a carpenter, different things of that nature. Book smarts is book smarts. But if you train them with these, you remember when the World Twin Towers went down?
Right.
When the World Twin Towers went down, these people was killing themselves because the only thing they knew was working with this. The ones who knew how to work with these and this, they survived, because you have to learn how to work with your hands.
You're more likely from experience of people I know that came out. It's a little easier. Like they say they rather hire you to do outside work than inside work.
I know, I'm gonna say this, and I know it's probably gonna be shocking, but I've met some of the most intelligent and gifted people.
Oh yeah.
Incarcerated or in the crack house. And when I was out there, I knew this was not my destiny. I didn't know why I was there, but other than the fact that I had that addiction. But I always was curious as to why other people were there. What brought you here? What made you get addicted? And to hear the stories of being raped, molested, and then I would curve the conversation, say, well, if it was anything that you wanted to do, what you feel like you're gifted, what you feel like you're skilled at, and you got women out there that are prostituting that are good at doing hair, they're good at doing nails. You got guys out there that somebody will pay them a dime rock and they'll go build them a shed. You know what I mean? But they got the skills. You got mechanics take an engine out of a car and put it all back together for a couple of pieces of crack. But they got these gifts, but they got this habit. So, some of the most gifted people I've met are in the trenches right now. And society chooses to leave them there based on what's on them and not what's in them.
That's deep. That's good. That's good. That's really good.
And from the White House to the church house, we can look down our nose at those that are in some type of substance abuse. And I've heard the word willpower. I heard it said. My mom used to say that all the time. It's willpower. It's willpower. And and I said, well, Mom, if willpower works for everything, let me just give you a little X-lax. And then when time comes, just say, I'm not going. I will myself not to go. So willpower don't work for everything. You know what I mean? As much as we would like to say it.
But I like that. I like that, Tommy. When you say willpower, and it's true. A lot of people can't will the power to stop something that they're doing because they're addicted to something and they don't even know how to get out of that situation.
Right.
And then you have to bring back what you said before. You have to have, and how you said it take a village to raise a child.
Right.
Not just to raise a child, but it takes a village to help somebody.
Exactly.
You can't do it on your own. And so you have to have that link. You have to have that link.
I'm so happy you said that. I have a friend that she created a community of friends to help support her in her drinking situation that she has.
Right.
So just as recently as last night, I'm reading, I was almost about to drink, but I tried to call a friend here. Well, she said she tried to call a friend here, and she's out of state, mind you. A friend here couldn't reach, next in line. She called somebody from the app. Right. And she was able to talk, and they talk her down. And when you say community, it really does take a community support system.
It takes it.
But so as we transition, so obviously when we talked yesterday a little bit, we was talking about, okay, so we could say, spiritual higher power did it, but it took a process. So that process, you said, included the law library, the chapel, and education. The thing that we haven't touched yet is the educational part. Can you relate that with how you made that redemption process part of it, that process?
With all of the education that I acquired, well, coming home after that bid, I knew I had it up here. I knew I had it. I was excited about it. Coming home, and my wife, and I love her. Her thing is a job. You know what I mean? She wanted me to get a job, and so, but I knew I had it up here to do it. And so I began to apply some of the principles that I did. I said, what can I really do? What do I know how to do? And I say, well, I always know how to watch cars.
That's a discovery period.
I already know how to watch cars. And so, you know, at that time, I got married and moved into a little town, Lake Butler. And my wife was like, Tommy, ain't nobody gonna let you watch their cars in this little old town. And I said, well, you know, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it anyway. And so I started doing, I took that education of saying, I'm gonna invest in me. Because if I go work for McDonald's, and this was what the book, The Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
If I go work for McDonald's, the 8 hours that I'm gonna work for them, you know how much money they're gonna make off of me? And on a job, they've already decided your worth. I got tired of people deciding my worth. They already tell me on a job, you worth $8 an hour. They've already decided my worth when I get there. It doesn't matter if you sit down and I'm working, you gonna get the same $8 I got.
Non-negotiable.
Right. So I said no. So I said I'm gonna invest in myself.
Okay.
And so I started washing cars, and from washing cars, it led into the property preservation business, and just hard work from my dad teaching me how to hard work, and then the education I had about business. I was able to apply it to my business, and it began to grow and multiply from there.
Awesome. But then after the redemption process, failure occurred again. Right?
Again. Yes.
Tell us about that failure and how you got back to progress again.
Well,
That's a long one.
imagine this: an inmate moving into an environment where there's all law enforcement. Okay. Originally, I came to Lake Butler, and my wife ended up having to resign from her job because she got involved with me, because she worked for law enforcement.
Really?
Yeah, she worked in DLC, and so she ended up having to resign for her job.
They tell you who you can marry, who you can't.
Well, if she's in DOC and I'm on conditional release, I'm still considered property of the Department of Corrections.
Did you say property?
That's what they say.
That's what it is.
You're still
That's
property.
what it is.
Yeah, so don't forget about the 13th Amendment, what it does. We had a whole documentary on it by, what is her name? I feel ashamed that I don't remember her name. But the 13th, the documentary 13th. If you haven't
That was
seen
on
it,
Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it,
saying that,
it's a rude awakening on what happens. 13th Amendment, the latter part of it. When you're incarcerated, you lose all constitutional rights. Your property.
Even after you complete your time and meet all your requirements.
Well, it being that you're in the process, you still
I was still their property.
Right.
How
so
long
that was
after your bid?
I think I had about 13 months of that to do at that time.
So that's what you were talking about prior, with all the requirements and
Right.
prerequisites they
Right.
have
Right.
before they can say you free now.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And in that interim of time, this is an obstacle. It's a short leash. You're basically still incarcerated outside.
Outside of
Yeah.
the system. Shackles on my feet.
Right, and they basically just sitting there waiting on you to mess up,
Yeah.
so they can send you back
because they know they got economic pressure on you.
Right. They know,
and that makes sense with the support system. You were saying how valuable that is to try to provide that.
Right.
So I can see the transitioning. When you were saying how do we fix the problem of the system,
Right.
It's just like make it better when they transition out to take all these financial demons that you set, these landmines that trap them to be coerced back to visit a behavior that they know.
That's right.
To say, hey, I got to get it some kind of way.
That's right.
Yeah, because we talked about the environment earlier, and we said we're going back into impoverished areas. Mm-hmm. So if the support system there, I got a bed for you, Tommy. I ain't got much of nothing else.
Right.
I ain't got much of
That's
nothing.
it.
And that's what we're facing. So at some point, when you're thinking about an adult coming home at late 30s or 40s, though you've been in, they don't know. All they know is, man, you grown.
Right.
Another thing too,
make something happen,
is when they come out and they don't have nowhere else to go. Mm-hmm. They end up in the shelters, or they end up homeless, and they're still out there on the streets. I pass them all the time, and I was down here at the funeral home today. I was telling you about it, and I was over there looking at some work to be done over there at this funeral home, and I seen them all sitting on the side of the road, and you know me, I'm gonna get out my truck and I'm gonna go talk to them like, what's going on? How y'all doing? Who are you? What you want? What you got? What's going on? I'm just here to talk to you. What's happening? I talked to a couple of young guys that's out there.
Like you
say,
see,
we here. We here. We need some help. You got some dollars? That type of thing.
But I want to say something else too in reference to your question. Mm-hmm. Success and stress don't go together for that.
Not at all.
And so I encountered a whole lot of stress when I came home. A whole lot.
Every time you come home, it's stress.
A whole lot.
Yeah.
From external and internal sources. And so having all this money and going through all of this stress, the first thing I said is, listen, I need to medicate this. And I can afford to medicate it now. And that's the enemy, especially that's the enemy for the individual that's recovering and beginning to become successful, because the mindset of the addict is, this is not normal for me. Success is not normal for me. I'm used to failure.
So does it draw from imposter syndrome? I'm not supposed to be here. This isn't supposed to be for me.
Right.
Oh wow.
Right.
Okay.
And so, but I didn't feel that way.
Okay.
I felt like I was supposed to be where I was supposed to be as far as success in business, because I had got it up here.
Right.
But the stress.
That stress is, I got it. I know they coming to take it some kind of way.
The stress is your support system that's around you that can't see or doesn't appreciate.
All right.
Because in their minds, you're forever an inmate. In their minds,
get it,
how do you come out of prison
and do this?
and do this?
Oh yeah.
And the lack of respect that I was receiving at that time, and from my house to the church house, I was like, man, what in the world is all this for? And then in one moment, I got a phone call, and all of my contracts was pulled. All of them. And really, all of my contracts was pulled because of the unprofessionalism going on in my office, and because of some of the unprofessionalism that was going on with some of my contractors that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't made aware of. And so I got a phone call to get rid of all of my contractors, or to get rid of me as well. At that time, I felt like that was not right, because they were family. I felt like their families depended on the money that they made in this business, and to just drop them selfishly for my own gain, I didn't feel like that was right, and so I got all contracts snatched from me, and that was the downhill spiral for me for the 2016 episode that sent me back to prison.
Hey, going back to Zero.
Yeah.
Zero never been a hero.
So it sounds like you're saying when you're experiencing success, right? Stress could be brought on by the people around you, family, associates.
Yes.
Being that you've been through it, right? And then it caused failure again. What would you say to somebody who's experiencing success and potentially having to deal with the stress? I would liken this to maybe your situation is irregular or the aberration. But what if we're talking about a football player, a basketball player, an engineer, somebody who came out of poverty, raised himself up. Being that you experienced that success, what would you say to them? How would you prepare the people around them? Or does it need a complete environment change? How do you evaluate the people that you allow to be around you?
Well, if it's involving friends, then it's a choice to make an environment change.
Okay.
Because as the old saying say, birds of a feather flock together. And if you're not going in that direction, then you have to change your environment. When it comes to the environment that you can't change, like family.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you can change.
You have to make up in your mind, I had to do this. And it may sound selfish, but for the addict, you've got to have a little bit of selfishness in you. I had to say, you're going to be mad before I be mad.
Addict, in this case, he was a business owner. So I'm hearing a business owner that came out and built a substantial amount of wealth in your business. But the people that was in your community, they wasn't used to it neither.
No.
So you
They didn't know who I was really.
Yeah, you gotta look. It's like if you in and out for your substance abuse, they're out with their time, and I think that's just a natural thing for them to feel like, man, how this brother got all this money going on, and we out here. What he doing? What's really up? So and building the team and going forward, it's like it go back to we talked about a community earlier. Our communities need to change to have that support system. Our communities have a code of conduct. They have to be shaped up to embrace those things. And the communities are not there like they used to be pre-civil rights.
Right.
Let's just say that they're not there. So when they're not there like that now, that means we're all in the capitalist thing trying to get it. That means you do anything to get it. And sometimes you may just breed enviness and jealous by those that's been there saying it can't be. Because they always say that what's close around you always kind of bring you down first. And that's what you pretty much kind of said, that was a breakdown. So when we asking how do we build that support scene, for what you know now and building that support system, you just got to recalculate it differently. That's what it is. You got to recalculate it differently because yes, you have that cutoff. And I'm let me see. My friend, my business partner Nehemiah said it best the other day. He mentioned that the same people that have to get you to 1,000 when you get ready to go to 10,000. They did their job. They
Right.
got
That's
to
right.
1,000.
That's right. That's right. And the problem is we want them same people.
But that's when you got to become selfish. That's what I'm trying to bring it back to you.
Right.
That's when you have to become selfish.
Right.
To realize you can't take everybody with you.
I concur with the selfishness part, but for clarity though, I think we have like Kevin Garnett. He brought his people with him. LeBron James brought his people with him. I think what the essence of clarity for what the essence of base of what you're saying, isn't it that we need to evaluate and help the people around us calibrate as well? I mean, not necessarily you, but if you have to deal with them at a distance. You may have to deal with them at a distance, but there's people that can still be a support system, but it's the wisdom that, based on your experience of failure and success, that these people now, you have the wisdom to choose who you allow to experience and be in your space.
One of the things
It's hard right now.
Yeah.
that is too, even to be able to allow certain people to be in your space, is you have to allow other people to be who they are too.
Right.
And that's oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know where I'm gonna go. You know where I'm gonna go. So we got one person, girl, that works with us. I ain't gonna mention no names.
Right.
And for the life of me, I don't know how she keep getting back jobs. And we done fired her 13,000 times, both of us, and she's still working with both of us. I'm like, how is this happening, Tommy? And it's because we had to allow her to be who she is.
Right.
And she's a hard worker,
Right.
very, very hard worker. But we had to allow her to be who she is. And then we have to be able to say, okay, we're gonna love you from a distance, but we're gonna allow you to still be who you is at work.
Right.
You know, and not be biased towards it because
Right.
you did this, and this.
Right.
We can't even associate ourselves with you no more. And so I had to learn that from him. I had to learn that from him.
But you know, like what Tommy said earlier, those people that are around him, they didn't have the same experience that he got in prison. He said he had a chaplain experience where it increases spiritual foundation, made him see his value. He had education,
Right.
which education and your spiritual system automatically going to expand your awareness of things.
Right.
So it expands it. But I want to get into, after these things kind of increase your self-value, but when you did that last bid, I'm looking at, well, how old were you when you got out? And then it made me think, how much did your age play to make you say, I definitely ain't going. I'm definitely not going back. Right.
I'll give you an example.
Like, I ain't gonna die in this thing.
When I knew things were changing, when I knew things were really changing.
Right.
We were on at Polk CI and we were playing flag football. The Christians against the world is what it said.
Okay.
And, I played running back, and so I ran
that's
track.
What they call it.
Yeah, that's
Chris
what
is going against the world.
Yeah, that's what they call it. This is prison. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they
rehabilitate that right
they
now.
happen to be in the world. But
Same that as prison.
I was and I ran track. You know what I mean? And I ran a 10-1 and 100 in track. So I always considered myself to be a speedster.
Yeah.
And I was out there playing football with them young guys, and I wanted to play the receiver. And I was out there running. And they say, you running in slow motion, man. Hurt my feelings. Slow motion. And so
They hit you with the unk? They hit you with unk.
They hit me with the unk. And I said, you running in slow motion. And so I realized then I didn't have it.
Word.
I didn't have it. And so I didn't have it to keep them jitterbugs off me. And I
Young
couldn't
man's
go back
game,
and do it
man.
no more. I had to pass the mantle. I had to pass the torch because I couldn't go in there and survive in there anymore. You know, and so I was tired. I was just tired. I was tired of the brutality from officers. I was tired of the environment. It's so negative. So
that would wear on anybody.
and the one thing too is that got me too, not to cut you off, is when I would get a visit and my dad and my mom is sitting there, it used to irk me for somebody to tell them it's time to go.
Yeah.
Or to tell them they can't come in.
They can't come in. I can't hug you.
I can't hug me. You hugging too long, and all.
Yeah.
I at this point even when I go in the house now, and I hug my wife, I'm thankful.
Yes.
I'm thankful that nobody can't tell me I can't hug her. I'm thankful that nobody can't tell her she can't come and see me. You know, and so just being able to open my own refrigerator, I got some Roman noodle soup.
Zoom, wham, wham.
I got some Roman noodle soups, but it ain't because I gotta eat Roman noodle soups. You know, and so I take just being able to sit here, just being able to fellowship with you guys, I take all of that to heart. Because if we ever take it for granted, in 1 minute it can be gone. You know, and so appreciating what you have. A lot of times we feel like what somebody else have is what we need, but being content with what you have.
Yes.
J. Cole said it. Love the one you love what you have. Yeah.
Yeah, love what you have and appreciate what you got.
I love hip hop right there.
Yeah.
You know, Eric B over there.
Rakim, God MC.
And appreciating what I have helps me appreciate me.
Right.
Because see, when I stop caring about me, then that's when they standing there with the light on saying, you're on your way back. You know, and that's when the dope man said, when he gonna bring me the next refrigerator? When he gonna bring me? You know what I'm saying? Because if you stop caring about you, and people will try the hardest to make you feel less than who you are.
Yep.
You know, they're gonna always look at your faults.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I've learned to do with the individuals that work with me is the faults are obvious. Anybody can pick them out. But it takes courage to try to look within someone and find the good, the worth of who they are. You know, because regardless to what on them, they're people too.
Right.
You know, and they didn't get there. I always say this. If people say, "Oh, you just out there doing drugs," my mama used to say it all the time. You just out there doing drugs because that's what you want to do. What kid in class, and if any of y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, if you were in class as a little kid and the teacher asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? How many kids in your class say, I want to be a drug addict?
Not one.
How many said, I want to be a prostitute?
Unless the kid that came from a bad environment. That's all
Well,
he really
even at that, he still didn't want to be an inmate because he didn't even know what it was yet.
But the kid don't know that's going to lead him there.
Right, they don't.
So you know,
Right.
and completing our final thoughts to complete the conversation, I want to say that you dropped some real jewels of how you use the education and your spiritual system and just that law library to get you to learning and knowing your value. So, you know, just to close out our thoughts and close out the conversations, anybody got any last remarks that they can maybe share outside of the education system, the spiritual system that you founded, and this other recommendations you can give to someone that may be thinking about drugs or maybe on the drugs, or just the youth before they even get started?
Just as we close it, if you could focus on that very first time you was on that road that you didn't even know you was on. It was fun, it was enjoyable, but you had no idea what road you just got on.
The pain it was going to cost.
Right.
And that's vitally important. Oftentimes the decision that we make, we don't have an idea, we don't even think about the consequence behind that. And so I challenge anybody, this is what they told me, this is one of the things that made me study law. They say it's a dumb criminal who don't know the law. And so
A dumb criminal who don't know the law.
Who don't know the law, because it's no excuse. They're not gonna say because you didn't know.
Yeah, that is true.
And so
no excuse not to know the law.
Get yourself educated, getting around the right people.
Right people.
You gotta hang around people that's going in the same direction that you're going in, or the same, at least the same direction that you want to go in. You know, that's why I'm here, because I'm surrounding myself now with people who are doing positive things, and I can only keep what I have by giving it away. You know, and so each and every day I look for an opportunity to be a blessing. I look for opportunity to be a blessing to others, because I find that I get more joy in giving than I do receiving. And so I look for that, and I look for opportunity to encourage someone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's around me all the time. You know, I witness the failures, the fall downs, the relapses, and I say, hey, okay, so what you gonna do about it? You know, the choice is ours. The choice is ours, and if anybody's out there struggling with any type of drug addiction right now, I want to encourage you. You know, you're looking at someone who's struggled with it for years, and there's absolutely nothing that you cannot do, that you cannot overcome, if you make up in your mind that you want to change.
And
Go ahead.
I like that. You know why I say that? It's because what he just said was, basically what you're saying is they can change regardless, and they can do anything they want to do regardless. One thing I did notice, you said this, and I'm gonna leave it like this, Tommy. If they don't understand their self-worth,
Right.
that pain that they have, you mentioned, that pain that they have, that pain, they're gonna always try to medicate that pain with something, you know. So
be there when you finish.
What you tell them to get around someone that they can talk to confide into, to be able to share their deepest pain with. That helps people get free,
Right.
you know, and not be ashamed of it. You know,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? Talk about it. And sometimes you have to be.
Talk about it.
Man, that's another subject, man, what I'm getting ready to go with, because I'm going to leave that alone.
Right, I think what you're leaning towards is, in our communities, our society, black men going to see a therapist or talking to somebody is considered soft.
Right.
Yeah, so I think at different occasions in our lives, we gotta be real. You know, we experience vulnerable moments, and it's a blessing to have a person that would allow you to vent to them.
That's
and then once you're done, it's done as well. Because they're not gonna tell you, remember when you were soft? Oh yeah, you this, you that.
Exactly.
And oh yeah, I remember when you were blah, and you know, because you know, my pops transitioned, and it took me a while, and sometimes you do need a person that you could be vulnerable.
That's us.
And as hard as everybody want to be, but we gotta allow each other to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And once you are that vessel for that person being vulnerable, allow them to leave it there. Don't bring it back up.
Right. Right.
There's a guy that was pledging, and he told me, man, in order to have a good friend or a good fraternity brother, you gotta be a good brother yourself. And that was indelible. It stuck with me. So in closing, you're saying allow yourself to be vulnerable, but choose the people that you're vulnerable with.
That's right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's so important. And I'll say this too in closing. You may have done it, you may be doing it, but you are not it.
That's it.
Thank
That's
you.
good.
You are not it.
You're not it.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for joining us with Common Hood. Hey, if you would like to be a guest on our show, please contact Gainesville Podcast Studio and book an appointment with Nehemiah Harmon so you can get as a guest. If you like what we do and want to get your own brand and build your own brand, contact Gainesville Podcast Studio, Nehemiah Harmon. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're out.